Hi, everyone. We're here on behalf of UofT Housing Services. My name is Yue, and I'm your Student Life Officer at Housing Services.
Hi, my name is Meg. I'm your peer advisor at Housing Services.
So today we're going to cover 5 questions that are most commonly asked regarding housing in Toronto.
But first, some of you may wonder, what is Housing Services? So we educate students about renting in Toronto. We offer search tips and strategies to help students navigate their off-campus housing options, which is what we're doing today. We also connect students to property listings through our off-campus housing finder. You'll find a link in the chat. And we educate students about their tenant rights and their responsibilities.
But one good thing to note is that we are not realtors, so we cannot do individual housing searches on behalf of you. And we're also not lawyers, so we cannot interpret the law on behalf of any students, but we're always happy to refer you to legal aid and resources if needed. So to begin, the biggest question we always get is, when should I begin search for housing?
So we get a lot of students contact us at the end of the academic year who are already looking for a place to live in September, and they are worried they are already late in beginning their search, when in fact, they are actually way too early. We recommend starting to look for a place 44 to 60 days before you want to move in. The reason for this is that in Ontario, tenants owe their landlord 60 days advance written notice before moving out. So a lot of landlords only find out the unit will become available 2 months before. It is extremely uncommon for a landlord to advertise much more than that. Most leases begin on the first of the month. So if you're thinking about moving in at September 1st, you can expect most rentals to appear in early July, which is around this time now, with many still posted online throughout August. This doesn't apply to independent, student housing residence buildings, which we'll talk about in a bit. These buildings begin their application process months in advance. So if you are considering one of these buildings, I either recommend beginning the application process as soon as possible, as they tend to fill up fast. And this leads me to my next question. What do you recommend for students or students who have never rented before?
Thank you, Meg. So if you have never rented before or never lived away from home, or if you're new to the GTA area, the process of renting can be a little overwhelming. It's sometimes even stressful for people who have experienced renting, but there are some options that can make the process a little less daunting. So the easiest option, if you will be living alone, so that means you do not have a partner, pet, or children to live with you, is to consider an off-campus independent student housing building. So many of you may already be familiar with on-campus residents, but there are also independent off-campus student housing buildings that the university does not own or operate. But these buildings typically only rent to students, and they aim to offer a residence-like experience. So they streamline their costs and offer events and activities. This option is great for students with no prior rental history, and it can even be a great stepping stone into the Toronto rental market, as they often take international guarantors. You can use your time living in this independent student residence to start building up your Canadian credit history and to strengthen your rental profile. But of course, residence is not the choice for everybody. So you may still want to search for an off-campus unit in the rental market. If you have never rented before, you may want to consider using the service of a realtor. So working with a realtor can be an easy way to search, and it's also a free service for renters in Ontario. But please keep in mind that realtors will only find properties that are average market price, so you need to have the budget to accommodate. And speaking of budget, Meg, what should I be budgeting for?
So when you're thinking about budgeting, it's good to remember that you will have fixed costs like your rent and variable costs like hydro and grocery bills. According to a report released by Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation in January 2023, the average rent for a two-bedroom in Toronto is $2,890. Estimated expenses for living costs in the Greater Toronto Area in 2023 are posted on our website, and it includes the average prices of hydro, which is your electricity bill, as well as internet, phone, transportation, and more. Remember to use the UofT planning calculator to help set up your monthly budget, and this will be posted in the chat for everybody. We also have a page that outlines the average rental cost in Toronto, but in summary, the average housing cost for students can be anywhere from the range of $1,100 a month to $2,700 a month, depending on several factors, such as are you living alone, how many roommates do you have, what kind of accommodation do you have, and where are you located, etc. Essentially, living alone does cost a premium, so many of our students choose to live with a few or several roommates in order to lower the cost of rent, like myself. Also, living farther away from the downtown core can be cheaper, though you have to take into consideration the cost of commuting. Something else that we also recommend adding to your budget is tenants insurance, which is around $15 to $30 a month. There are 3 reasons for getting tenants insurance. First, it protects your personal property. Let's say, for instance, if a random pipe bursts and your laptop, phone, and your bed get ruined, then your landlord's insurance will likely not cover that. It will likely cover the replacement of the wall, but not your personal belongings. Secondly, most policies cover personal liability, which is your responsibility for accidents or negligence. For example, if you get distracted while cooking and unfortunately set your stove on fire, your landlord will expect you to pay for the repairs. So if you don't have tenants insurance, you or whoever is financially responsible for you will have to pay, and often. The prices are in the thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. Third, tenants insurance may cover living expenses as well. So if you need to leave your unit for any reason, unfortunately, if there's a flood, fire, fumigation, those with insurance would be able to receive financial support to transition to other houses, or other housing, I should say, like a hotel, Airbnb, or another rental until they can repair the unit. But enough about budgeting and onto the rental process. So Yue, where should I search for rentals?
That's a very good question. So we always recommend starting your search with the UofT off-campus housing finder, and you can find the link to the website in the chat. So this is the website where landlords from all across the Greater Toronto area will contact us and let us know that they have a room, an apartment, or sometimes even a whole house to rent. These landlords are typically looking for students to rent their units, so they may be more understanding of the lack of rental history, or they may be more accepting of international rental applicants. Our team reviews ads before it's posted every day to make sure everything looks okay and all requirements are following the tenant rights in Ontario. But we still strongly encourage you to treat any ad you see online as it could be a potential rental scam and seek to verify it's legitimate before handing over any personal information or money. But of course, we don't get all the listings in Toronto, so many students will also use other rental platforms. So some of the popular options, including PadMapper, Viewit.ca, Zillow, Places for Students, Condos.ca, or Realtor.ca, and Facebook groups. The university does not have any official Facebook groups, but they are a good place to search or to find roommates. Though do keep in mind that scammers can still post on these groups, which leads me to how do I avoid scams?
So, scams are unfortunately very real in the housing world, and they exist in every major city, including Toronto. We hope to equip you with some key knowledge to prevent you from getting scammed. First, we have a very in-depth page on our website that details different types of scams, which we'll post in the chat, and how to avoid them. So I recommend taking a look before beginning your search. But some quick tips are verifying a property by doing a simple Google search of the address, as well as the landlord's name and email. Does the property show up? Does the picture match the Google Street viewing image? Does the landlord's name beside the word scam show up? Simple things like this. Keep your cash close, which means not paying for anything until you have to. In Ontario, landlords may only legally ask for an advance deposit of 1 month's rent to be applied to the last month's rent deposit, and a refundable key deposit as well. The amount it would, and it's important to note about the key deposit that the amount it would cost to replace the key is what should be refunded to you when you move out. It's important to only pay this money at the time of signing a lease. If you're signing a lease and will be moving out soon, the landlord will likely ask you to pay first and last month's rent. Now, even if you are an international student, if your unit is under the Residential Tenancies Act, meaning you do not share a kitchen or bathroom with your landlord or their immediate family, a landlord is not legally allowed to ask you to pay more than the last month's rent up front. You can offer, but you are not legally obligated to do so. Also, keep in mind that cleaning fees, application fees, security and damage deposits, and holding fees are not legal. It is important to understand the market. If you see a $900 condo on Bay Street, it's probably a scam. Some neighborhoods outside of the downtown are less expensive. Be sure to do your own research to find out what's the average in the area. But if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Ask the landlord why they are offering a discount. It's important to keep your guard up and have the landlord prove to you the real unit, that they own it, before you hand over any personal information or money. Remember, you should only be paying at the time of signing the lease. Also, the best way to avoid a scam is to view the apartment in person. If you are not in Toronto at the time, have someone either view the unit on your behalf or do what we call a live virtual viewing of the unit. A bonus question I'll include for how common it is UA, what should I have prepared for my rental application?
Thanks for the question. So during the rental process, a landlord will likely ask you to submit a rental application, which is a package of information that helps them assess whether you would be a good tenant to have. It is very critical that they only assess valid factors such as your credit history and your demonstrated ability to pay for rent, and not on discriminatory factors such as your age, race, religion, sexual orientation, etc. It is also very important that you are able to communicate your plan to pay your rent to a landlord, whether that is from your own employee income, savings, or the support of a guarantor. If you do not have your own employment income, as you are a full-time undergraduate student, or if you don't have enough savings to cover your rent, you will likely need a guarantor. This tends to be a standard expectations that landlords have for full-time undergraduate students. A guarantor is specified in your lease agreement, and they take financial responsibilities for you if you're unable to pay your monthly rent. It is usually a parent or older sibling who are working that are serving as guarantors. The guarantor may agree to pay in rent that you do not, or they may just pay on for all your rent on your behalf. So typically, a landlord will ask for somebody who is Canadian and has Canadian credit score and a Canadian working history to prove that they can take the financial responsibility. Landlord will also seek a Canadian credit score, which is a measure of your financial reliability. They will expect this of you or your guarantor. So credit score is a numerical score that range from 300 to 900, with 900 being the perfect score. In Toronto, you need at least 700 credit score points to be considered to have good credit. If you do not have a guarantor, you need a plan to pay rent. You want to make sure that you can articulate this to your landlord in a convincing way. So for example, by having supporting letters, a letter from your job and your credit report and score. And for the job letter, the landlord wants to know you're making enough to pay your bills. And if they want the guarantor's job letter, they want to know that the guarantor can cover their own living expenses and as well as yours. You also need funds for the first and last month of rent. You just need that money available in your bank account once the lease agreement is signed, but you shouldn't pay it before you are required to. You will likely also need references. Ideally, this will be a former landlord or a residence admin if you live in residence in your first year. However, this could also be a supervisor from work, or teacher who can speak on your behalf and speak to your character as a reliable, responsible individual who will not damage the landlord's home and pay your rent on time. Also, government photo ID and previous addresses are pretty standard in a rental application. But this is just a brief overview of the Toronto rental market. If you want to learn more about the rental process, how to set up viewings, how to avoid scams, what tenant right look like in Ontario, we have programming throughout the summer that walks you the steps of renting. You can register for our programming on Folio. The link will be posted in the chat. Also, for anyone who is in Toronto this month, on July 13th, this Saturday, we will be having our annual in-person housing fair, which will have student residence buildings, property companies, and independent landlords who are looking to interact with students to find potential tenants. We would love to see you there, and you can also register for that on Folio or just drop in that day as well. Thank you, all of you, for tuning in. Let me just check if there is any questions in the live chat for us to answer. All right, if there's no question, we're always welcome you to email us at housing.services@utoronto.ca. And we look forward to seeing you in our summer workshops and our in-person housing fair. Thank you, all of you, again.
Yes, thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for coming.